Hi, guys. Thanks for stopping by. If you're a subscriber, I'm glad that you're still here. If you haven't subscribed and you found me some other way, I hope if you like the content here, you'll hit that subscribe button and help me out. As I've explained, I'm still in the middle of a move. I'm doing all this myself. So the place is a mess. I'm still messing around here with lighting. Right now, I don't have lights on. This is just a window. And I'm trying to get the height right in the cameras. I will get it right. So bear with me. But I really want to talk about the Pope. I'm giddy, and as a lapsed Catholic, that's kind of strange to me. But I've been thinking about this and the gravity of this choice by the conclave is kind of hitting me over and over again. I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic grade school in Peoria, Illinois, did all the things. And then I just lost interest. It wasn't for me. I found it boring. I got nothing out of it. And I hadn't really gone to mass in decades unless, I was with my folks. My dad was not raised Catholic. He became a Catholic actually as an adult, middle-aged. It was after the death of my sister. And that's been 44 years. So it took him about, a few years after that. So, it is in my family. It just wasn't for me. Now, I am old enough to remember when Mass was in Latin and the priest would be standing on the altar with his back to us. So they tried to modernize it, of course, by putting it in English. So I want to read something here that I have from my, it was the first time I lived in Washington. Okay. And I was on Capitol Hill for many, many years. And my good friends across the street and neighbors, one of them was Sam Ford and his wife. I was very good friends with his wife. We lost her a few years ago. Their daughter is now communications advisor to Senator Also Brooks of Maryland. But Sam he recently retired. He also is one of the founding members of the National Association of Black Journalists, but he's also a sort of a historian hobbyist in Black history. And so this was first flagged for me on Facebook by him. And he was saying that the New Orleans Times-Picayune newspaper says that the new American Pope is of African as well as European descent. His mother's family was listed as Black in the 1900 census before they moved to Chicago. Robert Francis Provost, now Leo. I think we should just call him Bob. Nothing more American than Pope Bob, But his lineage traces back to New Orleans, and they're saying Haiti, and he's got this rich ethnic history, which is really so American because we used to pride ourselves on being the great melting pot, and it's always a struggle for us, particularly with the history of racism in this country. So I am particularly thrilled and interested in the meaning of this Pope. I think it's probably one of the things that weighed in. He clearly was a favorite of the most recent Pope. And he is an intellectual, highly educated, spent most of his career, I think, in Peru, speaks multiple languages. So he's not just, the Yankee Pope, although that's what they're calling him. I think this has deep meaning. The first American-born Pope. Born in Chicago. And then we find out that his ancestry is also Black at a time when white supremacism is becoming, now it's like part of our government and getting rid of everything in DEI, the open racism and white supremacism of Trump and his followers. That's just raging through this country at a time when we thought that while we still had a long way to go, this country had made a lot of progress and elected a first Black president. So this is particularly meaningful, I think, and I hope. And I had posted on social media that, maybe I'll start going back to Mass, because if the church starts having meaning in our everyday lives again, even with its recent, long-term history with pedophilia and overlooking that in the church, that still is a stain. They've tried to, kind of go a long way with dealing with that. But I think that this particular Pope brings a lot of hope. I didn't mean to rhyme there. But when you look at what's happening with the Latino community in this country, that many of them voted for Trump. Now, maybe being hauled off after they voted for Trump, being hauled off and deported, even those who are here illegally, maybe that will weigh in, for the midterms. But I think I think that this Pope's social media activity, this is what is so interesting about it. He has posted on Twitter a few times and was taking direct shots at JD Vance and MAGA and Trump on their treatment of migrants and the inhumanity of that, and making it very clear that this is not acceptable in the eyes of the church, the eyes of God. And I think that the Catholic Pope tends to, yes, they represent Catholics, but they tend to also be taken very seriously by true Christians of other denominations. Despite the criticism, much of it, if not most of it, warranted, but the Catholic Church is old and impactful, and sometimes does not change with the times. I mentioned that, I remember going to Mass when I was very, very small, and just have the faintest of memories of the priest saying Mass with his back to us in Latin. So when they switched to English and they started facing the congregation, again, that's been just in my lifetime. The church is so old and so slow to change. But I think that they understand these times, that we are facing the same challenges that the world faced with Adolf Hitler. And I think that this has been recognized by the conclave and this by the cardinals. And I think that has a lot to do with why they gave us this particular pope. And I think it's a good choice. I look forward to seeing what happens now. But when MAGA finds out that the new pope is of Black ancestry, in addition to being, as they say, woke, their heads are going to explode. Their heads are going to explode. They're trying to say he's a Republican. He's not. They're looking at registration. Well, I guess, they don't really register by party in Chicago, is my understanding. I'll have to check that out. But he's not a Republican. He has taken a very direct position against MAGA, against JD Vance, against Donald Trump on social media. The fact that Pope Leo was even on social media and only commented a few times, very directly, very purposefully. It's not like he's out there every day on Twitter and just starts throwing stuff around like a lot of us do. This was done on purpose, with intention. And that's what I've been thinking about over the past day. I find that to be interesting and meaningful. And I don't know if he'll be doing much more of it, but I hope he does. And we will take him seriously. I think Trump does not know how to respond to this. Remember, just a few days ago, within the past week, I guess, Trump put out a meme showing himself as the new pope. Offensive, stupid, unadvisable, and he did it anyway, like he does with most things. The Pope has more followers, is more popular, and just the fact that everybody now knows that this Pope is hated by MAGA means that the world is turning against Trump, as they should. World leaders, used to be our allies, taking direct hits, saying Canada is not for sale and Greenland is not for sale. They understand that Trump is a threat to the world and to democracy and to freedom. When our own media still tiptoes around him and sucks up to him, we can't trust our own media. So we don't rely on media anymore. Our American media. We now have foreign media that's doing the job. We have foreign leaders who are doing the job. And we now, I think, have a pope who's going to do the job. It's kind of hard to say that somebody has a political agenda or, oh, they're this or they're that. They just hate Trump because they're jealous of him, whatever the stupid excuses are. because now it's not just people for world leaders. You're getting people from all walks of life and influence and authority around the globe. That's a little tougher for Trump to deal with. Well, Trump doesn't care because Trump thinks he is a god. And there are MAGA who treat him as a second coming. This should put the kibosh on that, don't you think? Don't you think? He's not the second coming of Jesus. That will be made very, very clear. But I think this will be impactful with the Latino community, which is obviously largely Catholic. I think it will have an impact with other people if they're struggling between their still clinging to MAGA, or are they starting to realize what a lot of them are doing it out of personal pride. They don't want to admit that they were wrong. But now that they start understanding that this isn't just about politics, this is about everything. This is about your soul. This is about the difference between right and wrong. This goes a lot deeper. I think after Merrick Garland failed us or betrayed us, take your pick, there are other sectors, other influences around the globe and in the country. It's taken a while. They're starting to catch on that it has to be somebody else that saves us. I love that Bill Gates has now said he will not die. One thing they want to say about me is I will not die rich. He plans to take the next 20 years, which he's figuring that's probably the bulk of his lifespan of what's left, at least the productive part. And he's going to give away his entire fortune and to the poor and do some good. And then his foundation, the Gates Foundation, will close. He's going to make sure that he uses his fortune for good while he is still alive and he has control over what happens to it. And he has come out and said that Elon Musk is responsible for killing kids. So that's what I mean. So he knows the impact of the evil oligarchy, and he has made a conscious decision, a public decision, without patting himself on the back, just stating a fact that this is what he intends to do. He will not be, there's like 7 people who own, who have more wealth than the rest of us combined. So I hope that this means that other billionaires will step up when they see the evil of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, what he's done to journalism. Now he's only turning against Trump because of the tariff issue, because that affects Amazon. And remember, Amazon, they were going to be putting a tagline on everything saying, this is the regular price, but this is what we have to add on to it because of the tariffs. And now Trump is going after him for that. So it's happening little by little. I'm not saying that this changes everything overnight, but as I've said, I like to track the good news. And part of the good news is this Pope, Bill Gates, I think, and foreign leaders standing up to what we now, I think, universally recognize as evil. And once we understand that Trump and MAGA are evil, that's a good first step. A lot can flow from that, not just political differences, but pure evil. And I'm going to talk another time about Janine Pirro because, maybe I'll do one of my shorts on that. We do the longer videos here and then I do the shorts. But let's just say there is a silver lining to this besides just getting her off Fox News. The fact that she's now going to be the U.S. Attorney for D.C., it means that Cecily Strong will probably be coming back to Saturday Night Live for some good guest appearances, and I look forward to that. But anyway, I wanted to share my thoughts on the Pope, and maybe we'll talk about this again because I think it's impactful, and we're going to see a lot written about this. But his own actions on social media tell me that, well, it's always been a struggle for the Catholic Church to modernize because the church is so old, it's ancient. And as I noted, done in Latin with priests back to us, in my lifetime, just in my lifetime. So and then they updated things, I guess, when they let us have guitar masses. When I was in 8th grade, I learned to play the guitar. And so I got to do like the first Friday Catholic school mass, guitar mass. I got to play in the background. Our lead was a nun. And that was considered just revolutionary. So that's how slow things move. I don't know how useful it was to have guitars in mass. People liked it, I guess, but I don't know how useful it was. Changing it to English was a big deal. So I look forward to seeing what this pope does. The fact that he's on social media, and other popes have been, of course, the last pope was, but this one on a very personal, targeted, specific messaging. That is modern. That is extremely impactful and modern for the Catholic Church. And that gives me hope. So I look forward to it.